Good evening and welcome to this week's recap. I am Star Smart and it's a complete draw with Onyi Opala.
Well, this week on Undaunted, we had reports from the home front, and most of which were unfortunately sad. From the continued human rights abuse on the Amazonians to Amazonians being stranded overseas trying to flee the war.
A lot of which we gave in full details and also the good news of the outcome from the draft. But just in case you missed out on the news of this week, we have a recap only after the break. The media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, the people of Amazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and not with Undaunted ABC Amba News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Amazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Amazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Amazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Amazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, 1992, Amazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amba TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amba TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Amazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way round.
And like we say it always, Amazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You are just a click away. Visit our website at www.abcambertv.com, and the steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome on board.
And thank you for opting for the winning team.
After the successful Kickstarter with their Savannah Zone, that is Kodonga Mountain, Boyi, Menchum, Gokentuja, and Boyo counties, last weekend was the turn of the Midland Zone. Midland Zone consists of Mesa, Mamo, Manyu, Lebelem, and counties. Now that queued up in yet another successful, while the Savannah yielded 133,000 US dollars with 27,877.32 cents US dollars cash payment. Now, the Midlands have vested a grand total of 82,404,000 US dollars, with pledges amounting to 15,000 US dollars to be cashed soonest. With such innovative strategy brought up by the People's Interim Government, one can say without fear of favor that 2023 is really an acceleration year for the struggle, as reiterated by the strategist and result-oriented President of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, Dr. Samuel Ikomesako. Prior to this draft, the President of the Federal Republic of Amazonia, Dr. Sako, while lamenting the brutal killing of two energetic Amazonian youths who were abandoned out of their hostels and killed in front of the cameras, declared 2 days of national mourning and a special lockdown for Fako County for the 2 days, which was Monday 20th and Tuesday 21st of March.
Well, now on to another report. It has it that from this week that the deceased victim of the bomb blast that rocked Mount Cameroon's race in Boya last month died because she was neglected and abandoned in the emergency ward. Indy Linda died at the Boya Regional Hospital on February 28, 3 days after she and her three children were hit by one of the three explosives that detonated during the race. This was despite an earlier promise made by the colonial sports minister, Narcisse Mwele Kombi, who visited the hospital after the explosion and promised the La Republic du Cameroon's government was going to grant proper treatment to the injured victims. She was left in the intensive care unit and no family member was allowed to be by her side, and she died neglected.
Well, also this week we told you that Traders Filling is now almost the lone filling station in Bamenda, given that other privately owned filling stations costly have fuel highly demanded by customers. With the La Republic de Cameroon created monopoly favoring the Tradex, the price per liter is almost doubled, with desperate Amazonians left with no choice but to pay.
Well, a road user and one of the victims of La Republique du Cameroon's gendarmerie extortion on the highway was successfully captured on camera. An element of the La Republique du Cameroon gendarmerie busy extorting from road users in the name of control. In the video that went viral this week, drivers are coming one after the other, paying their way through by dishing out money to the shameless official. The money extorted is filed in the book in front of the corrupt official.
Also, this week, the CDC, the pride of the Anglo Saxon Southern Cameroonian heritage, the second highest employer after the colonial La Republic de Cameroon state, is going down just as dirt gradually takes away lives from an AIDS patient. Youths have all turned bloodthirsty and pluck out life from their compatriots as games in the park. Land grabbing with impunity has become the order of the day. Fine brains are being wiped out in an unnecessary war instigated by his utterances. Customs and traditions are dishonored on a permanent basis, and a lot more atrocities.
Well, also this week we brought to you that the people living in Batibo, Momo County of the restive southern Cameroon have said the Amazonian Defense Forces, ADF, a faction of separatist fighters under AGOF-C, operating in the area, are making life unbearable for them. A victim of what has been described as an ADF extortion scheme explained that the fighters have levied compulsory taxes on them and have made life more complicated amid general economic hardship. Old men are forced to pay 10,000 francs CFA and women 5,000 francs CFA each year to the ADF as tax. A resident of Batibo and victim of the exploitative scheme explained this to Undaunted. They said these are people who say they are fighting for us. Just recently at Kugwe, ADF fighters evaluated all foodstuffs like cooking oil, plantain, and other crops and taxes paid to ADF before they could be sold. The victim said he noted that the separatists abuse and victimize the population just about 2 kilometers from Ambo, a village in Batibo where a military post is located.
Well, also, a trash collection van of a council in Douala, the political capital of La Republic de Cameroon, fell with tires in the air on the same stretch of road the council failed to construct. It happened when the cabbage collection van on a waste collection exercise decided to use a stretch of road for the routine exercise. This is the same stretch of road that inhabitants of the locality have begged and cried for the mayor and his collaborators to rehabilitate. And the council has paid a deaf ear to the plight of these people who, because of the bad road, go to work late and are involved in numerous accidents.
Well, also this week, not forgetting that on March 22nd, a passenger still at the road crisis bus at Mabongi, an area of the Muntengane to Kumba Road, in an attempt to maneuver around potholes, overturned and landed in a valley with all the passengers on board. Well, business persons at Upstation also this week are decrying a drop in business as a result of persistent poor power supply. So this week, not only did we bring to you that there has been accidents due to bad roads, but now also power supplies. One of them complained saying on normal days, I can work about 6,000 to 10,000 francs CFA per day, but with low voltage, I can barely make 5,000 francs CFA. A barber complaining and adds that this is because of difficulties facing charging equipment. He says, I very often use rechargeable machines to barb my customers' hair, cut my customers' hair, but with the present situation, I can only serve about 3 to 4 persons with his machine one day. Not far from him, a lady working with a photocopying machine is using a generator to serve her clients. She says machines cannot come on if I do not turn on the generator because the voltage is low. Some days when the light comes back normal, it is so high that if we're not careful, it destroys our machines.
Well, reports reaching Undaunted on Monday and Tuesday said some transport agencies in the Colonial Republic of Cameroon capital Yaoundé grounded their vehicles on the ways of the morning and postponed all travel arrangements to the southern zone of Ambazonia for fear of attacks from the Ambazonia freedom fighters for disrespecting instructions from the People's Interim Government. Undaunted source added that the transport agencies took the decision after they were tipped about the visit of the Colonial Republic to Cameroon slave boys, that's the Municipal Atangi Jito Boyer, and fearing Amazonian freedom fighters could launch attacks to disrupt the Yaoundé colonial minister's visit. Some transport agencies reportedly told passengers they would make any travels to the southern zone of Amazonia those days.
Yeah, also this week we brought to you reports that got to undaunted saying victims of the unprecedented floods that swept Boya local government area last weekend have been handed relief packages from the Colonial La Republique du Cameroon's rogue government on Tuesday, March 21st, 2023. Colonial La Republique du Cameroon's Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanga Ng, was charged to come and flatter victims with a corrupt assistance from Yaoundé.
Well, three southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, are reported to be among several people who died after a boat sank on the southwestern coast of Turkey. Undaunted gathered that the Ambazonian victims are two women and a man who were identified among victims of the incident that occurred on the night of the 13th day of March. The Colonial Republic of Cameroon ambassador in Turkey, Victor Chewowo, had said in a release that their bodies have been kept at the Izmir mortuary in Turkey pending identification and collection.
Well, this week a young Amazonian has been attacked on board a taxi with all his belongings taken away from being drugged after being drugged. And the victim that Undaunted got the name as Kum Kingsley only regained consciousness in the hospital, and a good Samaritan picked him up after he was dumped by the road by his attackers. And this happened earlier in the week. Kum Kingsley visited Yaoundé with a mission of going to the Canadian embassy in the Cameroons for a trip in an attempt to secure a Canadian visa. Reaching Yaoundé on Monday 20th, Kum took a taxi with the destination Canadian embassy. Along the way, Kum Kingsley was dragged on board the taxi after his attackers collected all he had from him. They pulled him out and dumped him by the roadside, still unconscious. A passerby rescued him from the trench and took him to the hospital for checkup and possible treatment. After regaining consciousness, all Kum could remember is that he boarded that taxi and nothing else.
Well, Undaunted learns that during a Bune's meeting with their beneficiaries, local government actors and implementing partners at the Boyer Mountain Hotel, the activity report for 2022 was presented and that the meeting held under high instruction of the colonial slave boy, Prime Minister, Head of Government, Chief Dr. Joseph Dion Ngute. Undaunted also gathered during the week that the Colonial Republic of Cameroon's president of the steering committee of the presidential plan, paid tribute to the victims of the flood disaster, and then visited some of the projects like the Town Islamic School, St. Joseph's College, Sasei, Ewongo, and Wochucho in Victoria local government area, and the Bankigili Health Care Center. Now, the La Republic to Cameroon's errand boy Balungeli Confiance Ebune expressed satisfaction with the job done so far and thanks your partners for the support given so far, adding that he will hand a report of these developments to his colonial boss in La Republic de Cameroon and appealed to those who are still holding arms or using the social media to create chaos in the Amba land to embrace peace. Now, ask yourself, isn't that interesting?
Well, this week also a young couple that has been displaced by the War of Independence ongoing in Amazonia, even though blessed with 9 children, need financial assistance to make ends meet. The war relocated them to the neighboring La Republic du Cameroon town of Bonaberi near Douala. The husband, who gave his name as Diodone, says their landlord has even driven them out of the house for non-payment of rent. Well, with this, we've come to the end of the recap, and we'll bring to you fresh reports for today, but just after the break.
All right, and for the fresh reports of today, in Minka on the night of the 22nd to 23rd of March 2023, around 12:14 a.m., we would have been informed by telephone from a third class chief of the Mikaya Mills, His Majesty Elondo Afonso, informing us that a military of the Presidential Guard came and committed suicide in the Mikaya Mills district at a place called Ibam near a brook of the village. Security authorities descended on the scene without delay, where we noted that he was a chief warrant officer by name Josie Bilo, who was aged 48 years, in service as the Presidential Guard in Yaoundé Music Company.
Well, it appears from the first information collected that the latter, in the company of his wife, Mrs. Bilo Epse Singwe Jacqueline of English-speaking custom, who declared to us that both of them left the house around 8:45 p.m. with her husband to draw drinking water at the little brook of the village Ebam. Armed with his pistol, Par, the corpse was taken to the morgue of the military hospital under judicial requisition, and up to see envisage, however, in a search made in their home in the presence of the administrative authorities, we discovered in the conjugal chamber a large stock of parts of artisanal weapons, some already assembled and others under manufacture. All have been seized. As you can see, the images on the screen.
All right, and moving on to our next report for today. On the eve of the just passed banned senatorial elections in southern Cameroon's Amazonia, the Amazonia Defense Forces of the Amazonian Governing Council of Cho Ayaba blocked circulation on the Bamenda Mbengui stretch of road. This ban on circulation was a pacifying move by AGOFC to ease the movement of the La Republique du Cameroon electoral team and gadgets for the charade. These fighters lay out to Ayabacho prefers their cooperation with the La Republique du Cameroon to the plight their actions are subjecting the population to.
Well, the elections have come and gone, yet the restriction is still lingering on the Bamenda Mbengui stretch of road. The people of Mbengui are going through hell to access other areas like Bamenda in particular. The question is, what is the essence of the senseless restriction? And why is the restriction being imposed given that the election has come and already gone?
The inhabitants of Mbengui are having a tough time getting to Bamenda from Mbengui following the restriction on the circulation of vehicles on that stretch by fighters of the Amazonian Governing Council of Ayabacho. The population of Mbengui is compelled to use footpaths, and in some cases they use bikes. The roads that these bikes are using, coupled with the rain, are a dead trap. In some areas of the improvised itinerary, The bikes can only carry luggages and their passengers are forced to go on foot.
Well, this new trend has made living in Bangui very expensive as the prices of basic commodities keep skyrocketing. And not only are there price hikes, but these commodities also are not even available in the local markets. On March 9th, 2023, the Amazonian Defense Forces of the AGFC declared a ban on the circulation of vehicles on the Bamenda Bangui stretch of road. The people aware of the inhumane treatment the ADF is inflicting on them had no choice but to obey the restriction. The modus operandi of the ADF on the people of southern Cameroon's Amazonia lately has not been different from that of the colonial La République du Cameroon's military officers.
Well, as at press time, the restriction is still on, with the population still being subjugated to suffering. Before the restriction, from Bangui to Bamenda was 1,000 francs, and now the people spend up to 3,000 francs to reach Bamenda. With this, you wonder if the ADF is doing more harm than good. The people of Amazonia, who are supposed to be facing just one enemy, unfortunately, now have two to face. The people who are allegedly there to protect them are now the ones inflicting pains and sufferings on them, unfortunately. By the actions on the ground, the people of Batibo are convinced that ADF is a subsection of La Republic de Cameroon camouflaging to be protecting the people of southern Cameroon's Ambazonia.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. Untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
All right, now we'll take a look at Saint Eloi Bidong scanning 38 years of the economy in Amba from recession to darkness. Well, 1985 to 2023, the La République du Cameroon's ruling junta, the CPDM, clocks 38 years of mismanagement, he says, misery, suffering, heightened corruption, arson, bloodletting, bad governance, oppression, tyranny, dictatorship, seat-tightism, leadership deficiencies, or interregnums.
Well, a concern La Republic de Cameroon is in Saint Eloi Bidong scans 38 years of someone who was heralded when he came to power 42 years ago, but who has plunged the economy into a quagmire, pushing his country into abyss. 38 years, how the ruling party has ruined the country. 38 years with an entire government, all CPDM, top ranking militants in prison. Well, below is his assessment of 38 years of mediocrity, not just meritocracy.
Well, there are images, symbols which it is better not to choose to be identified with. The choice of the flame in 1985 in Bamenda as the emblem of the RDPC was premonitory through this pennant. The ruling CPDM party had just delivered its program to us and thus announced the imminent departure of the incandescent flames.
Well, 38 candles lit to illuminate unfortunately became devastating braziers rich in flames and smoke. The CPDM changed from the Democratic Rally of the Cameroonian People RDPC to the Gathering of Cash Looters RDPC, as if to say that an RDPC can hide another. The RDPC section of Kondengi prison is naturally the richest due to the status of the militants involved.
Well, 38 years of the economy in Amba, from recession to darkness, the balance sheet is pathetic, heavy and eloquent in terms of material damage, everything passed under the flurry of incandescent flames from the fire of the CPDM emblem for Gabe Sotuk, ONCPB, Medeviv, Fodik were totally calcined. The CPDM equally carbonized Rajiv Kam, Cameroon Airlines cam ship, the Cameroon Tobacco Company SCT, ONCPB, Sodincam, Biao, Cameroon's Bank Credit Agricole du Cameroon BCD in the ashes. The Fonada, the Society des Sacheries du Cameroon SSC, in a heap of scrap metal. Kamsuko SCB admitted to orthofacial restructuring surgery. The appalling spectacle of the fire, which consumed Alukam and Lonakam.
How many businesses have gone up in smoke under the CPDM? The balance sheet is still difficult to close to date. The flames have not yet been contained. The fire is smoldering under the ashes in several state and private sector companies. Some belongings pulled from the frames in shreds, shared in large parts. The Lamborghini, the Socapam, the Seacam, the container, the snake, more damaged by the waterfront, the firefighters than by the flames of the fire. Larsonnelle could not be saved due to darkness. The Sodokotum was disfigured by flames. Cosmetic surgeons operators are carried out. The fire smolders at the Seamencom, the Camtel, partially burned by the flames of the competition. Firefighters arrived late after, again, corruption ravaged police. The judiciary is roasted under the flames of corruption. The customs caught fire. The figures are only a smokescreen behind which the fire is in.
Well, Eloy Saint Eloy Bidung gives a detailed exposition, rigor and moralization, vigor and normalization of mismanagement. The policy of rigor and moralization was fatal to the intellectual jewels of La Republic du Cameroon, who fell one by one as in a terrible cataclysm. The very sulphurous, prolix intelligence jockeys, famous Ndongo, author of Paul Biya, the incarnation of rigor, had not foreseen the rise of the favorite sports of Cameroon: appropriation, hoarding, exclusion, theft, corruption, siphoning, and mastery in the art of bad governance. The worst would happen a few years later when Paul Biya, the embodiment of rigor, recalled that he was the incarnation of rigor. Unfortunately, it was too late, and the damage is spectacular with his entire government in prison. First claims, state claims, secretaries general of the presidency and secretary of state's director general, majors of NM, experts in public administration, professor of law, and eminent economist. Of all his activists and close collaborators, no one understood what Paul Biya meant by rigor and moralization.
Democratization, the oppression of all demons. Paul Biya wanted to be remembered as the man who brought democracy and prosperity to La Republic du Cameroon. Unfortunately, when a president of the National Assembly falsifies the result of a poll or orders the burning of the signs of an opposition party, which has every right to deploy, we are faced with old demons. When opposition parties have fires and breakages at political programs, is this the doing of the CPDM? If, as the CPDM, we form the list of candidates with banknotes, if the sub prefects stuff the ballot boxes, It is the act of the big R and on the orders of the CPDM. By bringing democracy, the CPDM knew that the sub prefects would ban their demonstrations of certain parties and authorize those of other political formations. The regret is that those CPDM activists are the same ones who embezzle public funds intended for development projects, influenced by millions the admission of their children to professional schools. This was not written in for community liberation. This book, which has disappeared from libraries, however, it should be the Bible of the power of CPDM and of Paul Bier, a book which was to inspire the creatures of man in their responsibilities. Very few militants have read for community liberation. Very few have understood it. Very few can apply the thought of Paul Bier contained in the book. President Barack Obama read this book. He understood it and governed America for 8 years with the ideas of Paul Bier. When he left power, America was a social democrat Cameroon. Now, Cameroon was taking a 180-degree turn towards dictatorship. America was birthed in prosperity. La Republic de Cameroon was on the honor roll of bad governance, with the palm of heavily indebted poor country. One wonders if Paul Bier is really the author. If not, only read. That is just a question.
Well, also he goes on March 24th, 1985, March 24th, 2023. 38 years in jail. The prison Paul Biya lives there. He has lost respect for everyone and everything. His decrees, his circulars, his speeches, his circulars to the CPDM. Everyone acts for his interest and for the benefits of his esoteric lodge. The decision of the national president are the subject of contempt among the party elite. In the government, the ministers are selling off everything. A war breaks out in the far north, triggered by madmen of Allah and other highway robbers, high ranking army officers, open wholesale and retail trafficking and embezzlement counters. The corporals rape virgin girls and kill women. He goes on to list that another war cleverly organized by the strategists of the chaos of the CPDM breaks out in the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. Here, the close collaborators of the CPDM national president fanning the fire so that it lasts. With so much pain, he says Paul Biya is right to hide, to live crippled and reclusive in the palace, and to play dead for more than 4 years. What has become of the words that ignited the love of the CPDM at its creation and its illustrious presidents: democracy, peace, progress, prosperity, freedoms, security, rigor, moralization? The party that was presented and defied is only the shadow of March 24th, 1985.
The question is, who will deliver us from this hell? How long will we still be in flaming smoke where all the praise singers of the party, the creators, the ideologies, their semioticians to interpret for us their silences of Paul Bier? Where is he, the famous Ndongo, to explain to us how and why Paul Biya could not embody the rigor and moralization? The arsonists arrive on time. Will the firefighters arrive late again? We have been dying to know for 38 years. Meanwhile, Cameroon snatches the honor roll of the most corrupt country in the world, a place it has defended fiercely for several years. The rigor announced and magnified had suffered the rigors of time and the wear and tear of power. Morality had become demoralized in the face of reality. Who will get us out of this political quagmire? Frank Beer, Dion Ngote, Ferdinand Ngongo, J. Pab Maurice Camcho, Mopa Marafe, Louis Paul, Mataze, all the return of the prodigal son. Well, that will be known sooner or later. Now, this is by Saint Elio Bidong.
Well, interestingly, we move on to another report. Again, another journalist, Tita Dominique of The Voice Radio in Yaoundé, that was missing since 2 days, has finally come back home, telling his wife, quote, "I was on a journey." After the heinous kidnapping and gruesome murder of Martinez Zogo and Jean Jacques Olabebe, including the failed kidnapping of journalist Joseph Olinga in the Essos neighborhood in Yaoundé, and the threats against other journalists, not to mention other others imprisoned. This time it is the famous journalist Dominic Tita, who got missing for 2 days and comes back after several searches, telling his wife that he was on a journey.
Undaunted landed Dominic Jeter is an investigative journalist and head of the Voice radio station based in the Essos district, Hotel de Plateau in Yaoundé and belonging to one Georges Gilbert Bouangla, has not been found since yesterday at 12 p.m. His wife Prisker, with whom we have just exchanged, is inconciliable. She and some members of the journalist family have been going to his place of work since this morning, hoping that he can return.
Well, Dominic Tita left his home yesterday in the Tsudi district around 8 a.m. wearing a blue suit to go to his place of work, where he presents from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. a social program called Social Investigation. After the show, he chatted with the radio watchman, a certain Bernard, until 2 p.m. when they parted ways.
Well, according to information that we have gleaned from his wife Prisker, there was talk of him traveling to Bafia yesterday as part of his work. He was to go there with a certain pastor who came from Nanga Eboko to find him in Yaoundé to continue on Bafia together. Prisker informs us that as at 1:45 p.m., Dominic Titter left her a message on WhatsApp. The message in question is as follows: Yes, Mama, still on the Hotel du Plateau. Pastor is already in Ngonteng. We should meet in Olembe, but there is one of Ola Bebe's sister who wants to see me in Obala. But it's not really possible. His wife not being on the phone when he left this message, the journalist wrote again, hello, hello, hello.
Well, when Priska saw the message his wife at 1:53 p.m., she replied how that followed by several other unanswered messages. She then tried to call without success. She went to the radio where he works, still no news. All night long, she lamented, wrote messages, and called again in vain. And at 5:44 a.m., she tried to call again. No one picked up. She then decided to write on WhatsApp at 7:30 a.m. to ask where he is. From 7:44 a.m. to 8:01 a.m., she received the following messages from her husband's phone. No energy, I charged the phone. I am in Bafia. Hello dear, I negotiated with the guys, it's okay. The same message is sent to his twin brother, his sisters, and his sister-in-law abroad.
Well, the sister of the wife Prisker, with whom she has been with since morning, launches a video call via WhatsApp this Thursday at 8 um, 02 a.m. Well, we picked up, but we saw no one except the darkness and no one speaking. Same scenario when his sisters-in-law living in the diaspora called. Currently, he cannot be reached via WhatsApp or no more calls. The last time he was connected on WhatsApp was on Thursday as at 8:03 a.m. As we go to price, Dominic Titer can no longer be reached. He never behaved that way. He always takes the trouble to give details of his movement to his wife.
Well, Dominic Tita is a famous 44-year-old journalist who's been working in this profession for at least 20 years. He has always hosted shows like Martinez Zogo to denounce the flaws that tarnish the image of the La Republic du Cameroon society. He officiated in the media as Amplitude FM, Royal FM 92.1 by Jonathan Nti, by Jean Marie Nga Konda, etc. Dominic Tita was very close to the priest journalist Jean-Jacques Olabebe, who was assassinated in Yaoundé at the beginning of last February. It was Dominic who introduced Jean-Jacques Olabebe to the profession of journalism. He is known as the letter's spiritual father.
Well, that's all we have. And we've come to the end of our recaps and our new stories for today. Coming up next is Defense Briefing.